Taylor, the markets continue to be very interesting here in Central Ohio. What are you seeing?
I think we were probably anticipating a quicker recovery to the housing market. I would anticipate, maybe in the summer we should have saw some activity pick up. Unfortunately, it hasn't taken place quite yet. It seems like some of the economic data that the Federal Reserve has been gathering indicates that the jobs in the economy wasn't as strong as we originally anticipated. And so recently we just saw some interest rates cuts to the tune of 50 basis points. It seems like the market has been responding to that previously, so the interest rates have been coming down, but we should start to see, I think, people get out there a little bit more because the interest rates are coming down and they've been kind of holding on, waiting to make that move based on what the economy is doing and what the Federal Reserve wants to do for interest rates. Yeah. What are you feeling out there, Zach?
It just feels like a lot of people are waiting and trying to see what's happening. And ironically, we're seeing interest rates have started to go down and inventory is going up. And so you would think, hey, that's a mix, that's great. But it just hasn't quite connected yet. And overall transactions are up slightly here in Central Ohio. But to your point, we expected more of it to happen, which will be interesting going into the election and knowing that there's going to be another Fed rate cut after the election. Yeah. That it's usually the end of the year, things slow down going into the holidays. And even January, February, starting the next year, it's usually a slower time. But I think this year it might actually be pretty steady and maybe even an increase now that people are starting to feel more comfortable about the opportunity to buy.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. What we have identified in real estate is people usually make a move based on a need. So a marriage, a child, or maybe a divorce, or a child leaves the home and goes to college, something like that, right? Well, when that life event takes place, now someone has to decide, am I going to fulfill this need by making a move, but also now go from a 6% interest rate from a 3% interest rate into a 6% interest rate. And so as we see interest rates come down, I have a feeling people are going to feel the need to make that move, if that makes sense, instead of holding on for forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have predictions on interest rates that you want to put out there?
Yeah, some of the people that we follow, people much smarter than myself, they're probably anticipating 2 rate cuts, which we've just seen the first. So a second will likely come right after the election. And then probably to the tune of maybe 4 more through 2025. So will we see things kind of settle into the 5s? Likely, we don't know. Yeah. I think we're going to gather a lot of information after this first 50 basis point cut, and then the Fed is going to make some adjustments going forward. But what we have identified based on history is rate cuts typically happen in a series. So you usually see 3, 4, 5, 6 until the correction starts to take place. And so where I think the markets are going to respond pretty drastically to the first, I don't think the markets are going to respond the same way to the other cuts that are likely going to take place.
Yeah, we've been down, earlier last year we were in the high 7s, right? And now a lot of them are, yesterday in the low 6 range. So I don't think that's going to happen every time the Fed starts to make these announcements. But yeah, if we level out in the 5s, I think that's going to be a nice sweet spot for activity to pick back up.
Yeah, and if you're waiting for the 3s, you're going to be waiting a long time.
We have to have some pretty bad economic information for that to come back.
That was a generational time, and I really don't think we're going to see that anytime soon in the near future. So let me ask you this, Zach. For someone who is feeling that pain or has that need to make a move, where do you feel like the opportunity is right now?
Right now is a great opportunity to make a move, especially if you're in a position to be flexible in your timing and know that you can take the long view. So right now, again, we said inventory's up, activity hasn't really followed in terms of buyers. So there's, in certain pockets, things are still really hot. But overall, if you're willing to take some time, do some work, make some improvements to a house, it's a great time to find that opportunity. Yeah, maybe your interest rate's a little higher than you want right now, but there's gonna be a lot of opportunity over the next year plus to refinance and get that rate that you feel more comfortable with. So having that long-term vision and flexibility, it's a really good opportunity right now. Speaking of which, everybody's going to say, well, should I refinance? Is now the time? What do you think?
I think it ultimately depends on their situation, right? And by refinance, if you're talking about a home equity line of credit and you have a lot of equity in your property, I would say sure. I always am a big fan of people utilizing their equity as a safety net if they need it, right? Because a home equity line of credit doesn't cost any money, maybe a small annual fee, if there's no balance. And the interest rate is a floating interest rate, so it's going to move based on what the market conditions are doing. So it really doesn't make a difference. So if you're sitting on $200,000 of equity, I highly encourage consumers to go find a home equity line of credit or a HELOC. As far as refinancing, like a cash out refi, I think interest rates are going to continue to go down. So if you're in a position where you don't need the capital from your property, I would encourage you probably to wait and see how things respond going into 2025, because I do anticipate things to continue to decrease from an interest rate standpoint.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, you don't want to be refinancing and then 2 weeks later be like, I wish I would have waited a few weeks, more just to, it could make a big difference just to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, and there's a cost to refinancing, right? I mean, there's some fees involved and things like that. So I would certainly probably wait and kind of see how things shake out. In the middle of 2025, we should have a pretty good idea on where things are kind of level off.
Yeah.